quarterbacks, no matter how good or bad they are, they have bad performances. And Brock Purdy had a terrible performance on Sunday. There was a lot of other factors that contributed to why he did so poorly, and we'll get into all those. But he was off. It was not a good day for Brock Purdy and for any of the narratives that we were going over last week. Definitely don't think he's in that MVP conversation. Maybe some people got a little bit too ahead of themselves. But how do you look at Brock Purdy today after this game? Do you look at him any differently?
No, just that he's human, and like I think we talked about last week. One of our topics was like about him being elite, which was obvious. Is like he's not elite yet, and there's still a larger sample size. But yeah, he's human. But I guess during the week where everyone was just pretty much jock riding him about being a system quarterback, they kind of felt a little validated, even though it was only 1 week. I mean, look, in a way, it was kind of to be expected that him and the 49ers offense were going to be stagnated that way because it was a good Browns defense. I'm pretty sure, like I was emphasizing last week, and you were saying the same thing, like, oh, yeah, there were better defense in Dallas, so it should be more of a tougher challenge for them. And then even we were saying, like, this is probably the real true test. And it's like, yeah, it's definitely a harder one, and it showed out to be that way. So for him, it's like I didn't necessarily anticipate him being as bad in that style of ways in terms of he was just missing throws like crazy. And I know people want to point out like, oh, there's no Deebo Samuel. There was no Christian McCaffrey. There was no Christian McCaffrey until the fourth quarter. Let's get that straight. Oh, it was raining. Okay, it rained for like a quarter.
That's an important. I feel like when people point out the excuses, they do. They
generalize it, and it's like no, he was out for the fourth quarter, and before that, outside the first drive, they were ineffective running the football. It didn't work. I mean, it was as simple as that. Like Purdy pretty much came into that day and we just didn't have it. So to me, it's like even if you had those two players, it's like what did that have to do with him missing throws? Because he just didn't have it. You know, it gave me a little bit like almost Garoppolo vibes, where it's like, all right, we got to see if Garoppolo's going to be having it today or not. And that was pretty much with him. He was so volatile. I was like, all right, which version of Garoppolo are we going to get today? We can get the one who's like on the money, like making the offense stay on schedule or whatnot. Like, and Purdy, you know, he is a little bit of a ceiling raiser on that offense, and we didn't get that. And, you know, I'm sure, obviously, you know, when you lose two superstars, it does, like, obviously dampen your offense a little bit. But to me, it's like, what did that have to do with him being overthrowing certain guys or missing on the target so much? And, you know, it was fine. It was one bad game. It's fine. Now it's about, all right, how did you bounce back from it? I feel like this question will definitely be more relevant next week when we discover, okay, fine, he had a bad game. It's fine. You know, I mean, hell, we just seen the Jets go through a gauntlet of elite quarterbacks that they made look average. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, like so many of these guys. So elite defenses so far in this league through 5-6 games have had the leg up on all these guys. So Brock Purdy, nothing to panic about. He was bad, you know, rightfully so. He gets emphasized as the quarterback, but ultimately, like, how's he going to bounce back? I think that's when we're really going to learn next week.
Definitely, like, learn something about his grit and maybe about how next week I think will be an interesting test to see actually what Kyle Shanahan and his response is. Like, if he goes into this game with like an ultra conservative game plan now, like, does his confidence in Brock Purdy shake at all? That will be an interesting question. I do think that we maybe learned the Browns defense, and Jim Schwartz has always had Jim Schwartz specifically is now 9-1 against Kyle Shanahan. So definitely had his number. And they played a lot of man coverage against Brock Purdy, which seemed to kind of shake him. And I was curious. I feel like you hear rumors as fans of the NFL about this and about the Shanahan system kind of giving the keys to the quarterbacks. This was a big thing with Sean McVay and Goff. People would say that Sean McVay would tell Goff like where to go with the ball ahead. But obviously, if you're playing man coverage, you have to wait until the ball snapped because you have to see which receiver is going to win. Do you think that the man coverage played like a significant role in maybe what was stumping Purdy instead of being able to decipher pre-snap where he was going to go with the ball? That was also a big problem with Jimmy Garoppolo. I've heard people say with the Shanahan system that throw to the linebacker, the reason that can happen is because quarterbacks in that system are taught, you know, throw a ball to a place. Yep. And so when you get one of those wild throws and you're like, there's obviously a linebacker there, why would they throw it there? It's because they didn't expect that linebacker to be there. They're expecting something in the system went wrong, and they're not really taught to like think on the fly as much. They're more taught to run exactly the exact right play in the exact right timing. And if that gets a little bit messed up, that's when you can see some of those wild plays. Well, if that's true, then potentially switching to a more man defense against a quarterback like that can take away some of the help that he might be getting from a Kyle Shanahan and from that system. I know you and I were talking a lot about debating if he was a system quarterback or not, and we kind of said, yeah, but he's also really optimizing it. Do you think moving forward that more teams will try to play man against Brock Purdy? Now, obviously, I'm getting in the future. We'll talk about it. Might depend on what if CMC and other players are out, because it's
Right.
obviously a lot easier to play man when you're down so many guys. But do you think that that was a bit of a, maybe people keep saying like the book is being written on Purdy? Do you think that man coverage was like a little key to maybe stopping him sometimes?
Yeah, for sure. I'm always a proponent of I love man coverage, but you have to have the right secondary for it. And the Browns probably have the best secondary in the league. That's part of why that the defense was so good. That was one thing that stood out to me. It's like, hey, like their pass rush is definitely an uptick, at least better than Dallas, but also their linebackers and especially that secondary. I mean, the Cowboys without Trevon Diggs is like nothing. They had Diggs and Gilmore, and other than that, it's like, their safeties or whatever. Versus like the Browns, like they just have like they're just kind of loaded on that front where you definitely can match up against the 49ers wide receivers, which the first receiving core is solid, but it's not like necessarily elite by any measure. It's a solid one and it's doable, especially when you mix it in with Kyle Shanahan's system. So that's correct when you're saying like, why do you throw it there? It's like, yeah, it's about timing and it's clicking. It's kind of the same way why he excels throwing the ball so deep. It's because he's timing it. He's not necessarily eyeballing it, and it's not like he has the arm where he can really zip it in there. He has to really afford that click, so he has to really see it almost like 2 seconds before and kind of throw it before. That's part of why of its limitations. So man coverage would probably be somewhere to beat him, but I think that's where it also makes it easy. I think that's the one thing that really made it stand out the most between not having McCaffrey towards the end and Debo throughout the game, because now it's easier to man up. It's like, oh, now we just got Ayuk and George Kittle, who, by the way, George Kittle is just pretty much an unofficial lineman now. I think after this game, they kind of finalized it. Even when he exploded against the Cowboys, he was pretty much just in for like just goal scoring opportunities. He's not really there to really like slice and dice a defense like that. So I think that's
Why
pretty
does
much how
Kyle
it
do
is.
that? What is your opinion? Why does, like, I don't think at this point, as a fan, I don't think you can say that it's George Kittle's old and not able to do it, because when he's given the opportunities, he's showing up in the big moments. Now, maybe they're conserving him, but this would be a situation. Okay, you're conserving him. Now you need him. So now utilize him. Why do you think, I know this is a little off topic. Why do you think that the that up and down happens so much with George Kittle and Kyle Shanahan not bringing him in? Okay, Debo's out now. Let's utilize Kittle, because that worked that helped negate Dallas's pass rush. Why would you not do that to help negate the Browns pass rush? I felt pretty frustrated. I think he got 2 targets. One there was a penalty on, so like he only got 1 real target. Very weird.
Yeah, he only got 2 targets. Honestly, I think the whole like Purdy was under pressure like a ton of the time. I think it was under 40-45%. That's a pretty significant amount when you're damn near half the time like facing pressure. But I don't think that necessarily was the whole reason that derailed that offense. I mean, it's just look, Jim Schwartz has had a perfect game plan. Sometimes you get beat. There's too much like everything that I've been consistently hearing from everything, whether it's like online or read people I know, it's always like Shanahan should have said this or this player should have did that. Freaking Moody, da da da. And it's like, hey, sometimes you just get beat, man. Why? What's so hard with giving credit to the other side?